Hey guys, I hope you guys can see me. It's a unique kind of a location. I am at one of our companies here, friends of ours who have been so kind to actually offer us the space to be able to give this presentation. So the makeshift, what you're seeing here, is with this live streaming app. It's not still possible for me to actually project my streaming or cast it on my laptop or my screen, but we did find a way to kind of create it. We darkened this room. It's a big sort of meeting room, and we essentially kind of created, so basically I'm just casting it live on this HDMI screen, and you might experience a very small difference in terms of the resolution, but the letters are large, and I have all kinds of clickers and pointers that'll help you get familiarized with the topic. So that's a bit of a housekeeping. Important thing is, I know 2,000 plus people. I think it's 2,100 people. It's it's really unbelievable that so many of you registered. I really thank you for this. Our goal is also in the interest of kind of reducing the miles that I've been making in the last 2-3 years, is to try to find a better and a digital means to be able to reach out to communities who find it really hard to come to conferences, physical conferences. So this is the first session here in Asan, the city where we are located. Our friends, Ultraware, is located. By the way, just to kind of let you know, Ultraware is the greenest company in the city of Asan, which is also sort of a little hub of a lot of tech companies, green companies, battery companies. CEO Serge and COO Gaston and a lot of other really wonderful people. We're working with some interesting projects together with them. So the location-wise, I'm really thankful to them for making it happen. And the second housekeeping is, I know not everybody of you would be able to join this live session, but I'll do my best to put this content also online, so you can see this recording even after it has happened. So it's live streaming. Two, housekeeping, I will make the presentation available so you will be able to reach out. You will be able to download it. Three, if you want to hear me sort of go through this whole presentation, which I will do, we'll start in a few seconds, you can still sort of subscribe to this. So the content has to be uploaded to the cloud, and from Switcher Cloud, you will be able to replay this video already again. So that's a little bit of a housekeeping. About the content, so I explained about the why. Why am I doing this? Because I want to cut down the miles. I'm not going to be traveling like mad all over the world unless it's really necessary, and kind of reduce my own carbon footprint and try to make sure that I also try to at least live this sort of in this new world. I don't know if I hope it makes a little bit of a difference. The second thing, probably the most important thing, is that the next session we're probably going to do in Paris, where our collaboration with this huge a combination of companies that brings about 10 million euros worth of our combined revenue and sales portfolio together. So our next session, I'll try to do it from Paris, which is not so far away from President Macron's office. So we'll do that. The mode of the presentation, for those who didn't have time to kind of understand, what's it about? So the presentation is going to be about, one, what is the current state of companies that are sort of that feel that they are AI companies, but is that really a fact? The second is, how do you become an AI company? That's the second. And third are a few examples of in our healthcare and the project in climate change. I'm going to walk through these in these 45 minutes, and I hope I can make these useful. I'm just going to quickly go and check with one of our colleagues here in the office and see if you were able to hear me speak, and if it was all sort of helping you guys also hear what I just said. So give me a second, 2 seconds, 2 minutes max, and then I'll start the presentation. I'll be just sitting next to my laptop, and I'll be sort of scrolling down these slides, and hopefully this is going to give you a decent overview. Once again, thank you once again, massively for being, joining this session. And I'm really grateful that you actually sort of accepted and also passed on to your colleagues. So happy to have you here, and let's get started. All right, guys, I was able to check with my colleagues here in the next office, and they had a live streaming on, and he said, yes, you were able to hear, listen to the audio. I have a timer here. I will continue to kind of, go and see if I can get you into this 45 minutes of live session and give you a perspective of what is it to become an AI company, and becoming an AI company. I did some sort of digging into a couple of customers we worked with, but we'll give you an illustrious example of a company people not really know much about it. But let's kind of sort of get started with this. So if you look at it, I'm sure you've seen something similar to this. Where you have, and I'm going to start with also my pointer, so I hope you guys can see this, a little sort of a green flash flashing. So I'm sure you've seen these sort of 5-step kind of a strategy slides on many companies that kind of present themselves as to, well, you're crawling, you get started and you accelerate. Becoming an AI company, and if you go to the cloud, as you can see there on top right, that is where you become a successful company. But we'll go through the reality of where there is a lot of confusion and on a lot of sort of echo chambers as compared to how real sort of business leaders and leaders in who are using AI as a tool to advance their companies dramatically. So if you look at this, I'm sure you will not be able to read it, but don't worry about it. I will sort of make these slides available, like I said. So these are all little steps which companies take in order to become an AI company. So for example, design. I'm sure you can read it. Don't worry about it. Campaign management, all kinds of sort of sales, marketing, and all kinds of toolings that you are using and kind of becoming more advanced in how you manage your data. And so this is fine. I mean, many companies kind of feel that, well, we are transforming, we are in automated stage. And then, these kind of revolutions start happening as you see the blue deck, where you have machine learning coming in a couple of years ago. Deep learning started advancing in the last 4 or 5 years. And then you have computer vision, which, a field where you use cameras and all kinds of other tools to create sort of intelligent systems. And as this field continues to expand, you see that here new models continue to also evolve. So that's a sort of point, painted these in pink. And so, there are different new models coming up. NLP, natural language processing, natural language understanding, natural language generation. I'm sure you're beginning to see that it's becoming almost the state of the art, and technology is sort of advancing. So this is actually, you could see this as a totally different new world in which a lot of companies are kind of breaking away from all these other companies who have been, well, we are data analytics company, we do a lot of interesting things, but they're essentially kind of just doing a lot of, sort of repeat and rinse work, and not really being able to sort of advance dramatically from their competitors. So essentially they end up coming into a competitive ecosystem, as Peter Thiel has also sort of described in so many occasions. And so when you are starting to look at these AI applications here on top right, and then you start seeing how industries in automotive, which will be an example which we'll go through, then you will realize that things are changing dramatically. Healthcare is another area where you're going to see a lot of transformation happening, and a lot of things in which diagnostics field is kind of, people were already saying it's saturated. A lot of interesting three-dimensional models are being developed today by healthcare companies, but no one talks about it. Because it doesn't really make sense. I'm stuck here. How does it matter to me? But the thing is, this new world is evolving, and the ones who really understand this art are actually making advances in this industry. And similarly, you can look at, climatology is not an industry in itself. It seems to be a complaint of a lot of people who think, well, the weather is changing, the world is dramatically changing. If I just showed you, just turned my camera right now and showed you the weather outside, and if I'd showed you the weather outside 15 years ago in the city where I live, we used to have, 10 inches of snow to 15 inches of snow. Today it seems like May. But anyways, it's not an industry yet. It's a revolution. Manufacturing is transforming, and so on and so forth. You see that. The second slide here, you also see basically this is kind of a rather familiar model as well. If you just take a look at these. So you see here you have culture, leadership, people talk about governance and controls. You have organizational structure here. You have people and talent here. Tech and application landscape, data and information flow, how does it come, your process streams and how things work in your process, infrastructure, facilities, how are you managing your data assets? Is it in public clouds or private or hybrid cloud ecosystem, or you have your own private sort of data centers? How do you source and services from your vendors, and how does that global sourcing ecosystem looks like? So, I mean, if you look at this slide, is probably also quite familiar to a lot of people who have been in sort of going through the revolution of being a digital transformation, AI transformation. But I'm just going to show the differences, why this world is actually sort of changing dramatically, and why, if we start looking at these sort of subdivisions inside a company, why it actually does not make sense anymore. However sophisticated these narrative looks like, something that I have also kind of propagated. I've worked with industry leaders in the last couple of years, almost a decade, you could say. So this is the capability model, which is typically sort of promoted by a lot of companies, and we'll just break it down piece by piece and kind of explain why this is actually not working, because they're disconnected from each other. So again, if you look at these layers of execution, if you are an AI company, I'm sure you have these. For example, this is the service layer, and it describes how your AI services will be delivered through a shared service center of excellence. You know all these terms: business partnering, cloud infrastructure hosting, etc. Servicing your basically your services. And then you have a technology layer. How do you sort of enable processes and policy compliance, internal controls, and generation of reports, and And then you have your process layer, in which you're basically linking functions and departments that perform each step and accompanying policies and procedures to be followed from these process steps. And then as you move on, you have your people layer that describes that describes how people are organized through their geographic or business unit perspective, including lines of reporting and spans of control. So basically, you could say, well, let's put a lot of people here, create some kind of a machine learning or deep learning department, and create some kind of a competency roles, and it's definitely should be working with each other, right? It's all stacked up, so it should work. You have channels layer. They're basically sort of determining which digital or channels you want to integrate into your AI strategy, deciding on specific channel selection and cross-channel integration and collaboration. And finally, obviously, your operating model. So your target operating model is something which a lot of companies tend to have some kind of a system. And I'm not saying that the system doesn't work. All I'm trying to kind of challenge here, the status quo, is that the system is not working as efficiently as people may have projected this. If you see sort of layer from this, sort of going up and down this layer, and the amount of inefficiency and complexity that arises from these layers. So this is, well, you could say this as an old world. Well, old world, just a couple of years ago, this was very successful. Now take a look at actually how real sort of leaders who actually achieve breakthroughs in their markets are creating services and products and services. So let's say if this was your market ecosystem. And let's try to take a look at these three axes. So you have your Y, X, and Z axes. It's based on a research done by a great researcher called Floricel. You can look it up yourself. So I thought I'd kind of project my ideas based on this research. So if you see, you have technology uncertainty at this point here. You have market uncertainties. A lot of companies are dealing with market uncertainties. And then you have context dynamism, or the constantly changing context of your customers here at the bottom left. So these are the three uncertainty domains where most companies have to navigate through. I navigate through this with our company. Other bigger, mid-sized companies navigate through that, and larger enterprises navigate through these as well. If you break it down into subpieces, you're going to see that on this. Let's start with the Z-axis. You see that. You have a stable, you have some context is stable, you have standard stable customers. It's changing, your customer landscape is changing, so you need to optimize your services. And the disruption of effervescence is happening, so it's pretty disruptive. Customers are going bankrupt, or other things are happening. You need to do something dramatic. So that could be your consumer base here, going from stable to super dynamic. If you look at the technology, a lot of companies focus on marginal improvement, and you go all the way from marginal improvements to advanced R&D. We're going to go through that sort of in a few seconds. And then this is probably even more important, because these two axes actually make a lot of sense. But here you have your markets, which is actually where you want to span and establish yourself with your services and your infrastructure and your assets as you go for global expansion. So here you have your known markets. Here you have your unknown but existing market. Your adjacent market you probably want to sort of capture, and out here you have new market creation. So if you just kind of take a look at this, I just kind of charted this out. So here you're basically doing incremental stuff in this case. So for instance, I'm sure a lot of companies out there have some form of incremental service. It's like a smartphone application, and it's kind of working well for them. And they're excited. This app is creating some revenues, which is great, but essentially you're still navigating in this domain which is stable and known markets. You're actually just defending your turf. So there is nothing great to be proud of this area, but still, I mean, it's a great step, incremental. It feels great. It feels like an AI company, right? The others who want to go a little bit further, they try to kind of make an extra incremental kind of service. You develop an IoT service or a product here. You tend to sort of move into a bit of a dynamic market, try to understand a little bit. It costs a lot of sort of investment to do that, but still companies kind of try to do that. So this is still a better place to be in terms of sort of taking risks and becoming sort of a more transformative company. And then you have this domain. So let's start taking a look at this. So you have your new services in the market where you're disrupting the market dramatically. So essentially what you're doing is you also start ring fencing. I'll go into the example and explain what that means. But for now, just take a look at, kind of just remember that this is where companies are focusing on secrets and mysteries. If the ones, I don't know, if, folks, if you read Peter Thiel's book 0 to 1, focusing on secrets and mysteries is where companies kind of start moving into some really large domain and creating large markets. So let's keep moving. So here, what they start doing is start building and ring fencing and locking down their ecosystem, essentially getting a monopolistic kind of sort of approach. And they start creating market validation from the services, and they start creating a new market zone and disrupting the market, totally leaving these guys behind. And finally, they start pursuing the boundaries and pushing the boundaries to further enlarge this new market. This is what is happening. If you take a look at this company, and I'm sure you recognize this vehicle, it's going to be released by Tesla. It's the Model Y. What you see is that today, they're definitely into this zone because it looks crazy, it looks disruptive. No one wants to get into this domain because you want to just protect your own turf, no matter that the turf is kind of disintegrating or kind of reducing as the market share kind of starts moving into different direction. But today, I mean, this is where companies are building new services and products. So this is a hardware product, but essentially there's a software that is driving this company dramatically. I think there's a huge difference which automotives today actually are, I'm sure they realize it, but that realization to leading to action is going to take some time. So, this is probably super important. And obviously, as you can see here, this is the, you're looking at the neural chip that is inside each vehicle of Tesla. And that is also kind of proving to sort of already move beyond what a company like NVIDIA would have provided for them. So they said, well, we're going to go and move and create our own chip. But that's not just it. I'll talk about more in detail how they're really creating a lot of their own new services versus just going ahead and buying or collaborating with other companies. So what you see here is, just to kind of summarize, this is the fact zone. These are the facts you deal with when you are in a company. You are dealing with the facts that I'm in a market that is changing or is stable, and I'll do some things and probably do some revenues. We'll sort of, try to crank up our company's, portfolio, but essentially you're still kind of, disillusioning or deluding yourself and probably even your shareholders, because essentially you should be moving into the secret zone and start creating new products and services that will dramatically transform your company. I see I've spoken already 20 minutes. I'll probably go faster with this now. But don't worry about it. You can keep asking questions. I will answer these after the session. I will not answer during this session. I will make sure that each and every question I will answer once the recording is finally done. So don't worry about it, but please keep posting a question. So having sort of observed this in the last 20 years, and I've been through transformations myself as in technologist, but also as someone who's been advising business leaders for large transformations, I realized that model, which I just showed you with those 9 blue circles, is actually dying. And that is why you need to become a dynamic company that is constantly evaluating its risks, but also taking calculated risks, and essentially also making some big bets in their business. So I'm not going to go in detail into this. There might be definitely a new separate session for this because it's a big research. But for the sake of simplicity, just kind of try to understand that it's a lot of companies in Silicon Valley companies focus to be here. So they are centralized. They have all their key core operations in this zone, and they're super competitive. And as you can see here, they build everything here, and this is how they kind of navigate. Some companies, when they start seeing bigger markets emerging, for example, you're in Silicon Valley, you start moving to Germany or Brazil or some other area, you could move some key competitive advantage to a decentral location that becomes your second hub. For example, an example of Amazon moving to Texas or to New York to create a new hub essentially could be seen as sort of a shift from super central competitive to decentral and being super competitive. A lot of companies in the last 30 years, this is basically a research based on this new concepts and trends in international R&D organization. This is a research for the past 30 years ago. So they've kind of created this model in which they said how companies exist in these landscape. So if you are competitive, you're essentially here in this region. The more you start cooperating, if you can just see here at the bottom, you start moving out and you are extremely reliant on your partner network, business network. And this is the extreme example of a highly networked company. As you can see here, it's a super networked company. It's decentralized, it's cooperative. So you can imagine you don't have many high margins. You just have a large market share, but your margins are really low. But it just gives you a feeling that we are a large company, but essentially sort of you're not really competitive. You just look at the technology landscape today, and with the blowout after blowout quarters, a lot of companies are posting today. Apple, you saw a lot of companies, Microsoft, they're going to continue to be doing this because they're here in this region. So, so AI dynamism, my proposal is actually that a company needs to navigate through these and constantly optimizing its operations to be able to kind of, set up a tent, just being a literally physical example of a pop-up kind of a tent like Tesla does when it starts manufacturing its cars. It doesn't go for established sort of huge investments. It's just moving and saying, okay, fine, we're going to set up tents and start manufacturing right away. So basically it's moving. So essentially what happens is when you're competitive, there are certain disadvantages, but today this is the super key advantage in today's times, and how companies need to operate and sort of be a hub and spoke, being in the center, and kind of a potential where you keep your talent base here. And keep tapping your talent from these two, getting talent from the center. You could be highly networked company and cooperative. You'll see me giving an example as we move on to the next. Make it a little bit realistic with the Tesla example. So let's go quickly into this. It's pretty straightforward. As many of you, if you're following Tesla for a company for a long time, then you would sort of familiarize or you would recognize these things that they have done. So for Tesla, it was super important to kind of move into this domain, and they started creating. They manufactured their chip. They have a lot of patents, by the way, also in deep learning. If you just you go to USPTC and patent office, and you will see many of those new patents are coming, as well as they continue to optimize this chip that they have manufactured. So it's being manufactured here in Silicon Valley. It's not being manufactured, created anywhere else. And then what you see here is the, I hope you can see this, this is the FSD, or the full self-driving computer that every car actually has. It's also being manufactured here. And then obviously you have the vehicle that needs to go to the market and is basically being pushed also in this direction. And this is sort of a shift into, well, if it's a gigafactory in China and this year and next year it comes to Germany, then the expansion plan starts kind of becoming, it starts going sort of, it's a multiplier, and you're going to see that as well in the valuation of the company. And it also starts gradually moving from being in the black or in the red in terms of their financial metrics to a company that gradually becomes profitable. And then obviously, you could shift essentially, the manufacturing of the full self-driving computer also into this this decentralized but highly competitive gigafactory in a certain region. And then obviously you have, as you can see here in this side, just to show that Tesla obviously also tried a lot of things, as any other startup would do, trying to collaborate with a company to help them with computer vision's algorithms, and help the car sees better. And this company was Mobileye. Today is it was bought by Intel, but this cooperative model was no way working because this would not give Tesla the extreme competitive advantage. So essentially this led to Tesla sort of breaking every tie with this company, and they had to look for a new buyer, which they have found in Intel. I honestly don't know, to be very honest, what is happening there, but we have no idea. But for Tesla, it really doesn't matter. It cleared their vision, and they moved into becoming a highly centralized company. So this is the FSD chip tour. I'm sure you've seen that there was an event a couple of months ago, and they will constantly be sort of embedding all kinds of wonderful computer vision models, which I don't have to go into detail in this session, into this. And then you could gradually move this towards the centralized, and then you could probably see, as the market expands, that might move into decentral but highly competitive sort of manufacturing capability. All right, so I spoke about this model. It's great, it's fantastic, and all that stuff. But how does it really sort of we're not a manufacturing company. I am a software company. ERP and all those things are my, those are the kind of platforms I use heavily. So let me just tell you a little bit of a story about, not many people have heard of this. So let's take a look at this. So today, let's break it down. I'm not sure if any or most of you have heard of this project Warp. So basically, this is a customized end-to-end platform called Tesla 3DX that was to ramp up the production of Model 3. This, by the way, for I think one of our partners, company Genji, they also work with the French company called Dassault Systems. So they worked together with the Dassault Systems to create an end-to-end workflow system across organizations with a focus on product platform engineering and manufacturing efficiency, smaller teams, and IT. So they went and worked together with this company. We don't know and how far they're collaborating as much as they're sort of gaining the intellectual sort of knowledge to build this themselves. But this is an example of, let's say, a buy or collaborate, as you can see here on top. But if you just take a look at this Warp, just wanted to sort of, Project Warp is a product, a business platform they developed here in the point number 2, in which the CIO of the company actually had a choice. He's been a CIO. That guy had worked for technology companies in the past, and essentially the company internally decided to not go for some large vendor systems like SAP and Oracle. If you can remember, just kind of recall, we are looking at a highly competitive company that wants to keep things central and in let's say the worst case decentral but still competitive. They did not even probably think twice going to a company like SAP or Oracle to build that end-to-end a business management platform. It has been told, and a lot of things you don't know much. The CIO was successful in building this in just under 4 months with a small team of 25 software engineers. And I'm sure a lot of people will find all these stories unbelievable, but I can tell you, based on this business model, it probably would have been almost impossible for any of these large vendors to have been able to come into the ecosystem or the market system that Tesla is creating today. So if you look at this, they are in the business of selling cars online. How many companies did that just 2-3 years ago? You would have all kinds of sort of optimization, but you just don't sell cars online. Servicing its own cars is not something which automotive industries do. So these are all killer differentiation. That's why they were doing it. They have their own sort of makeup sort of vans and they service their own vehicles. They don't rely on dealer network. And you would say, well, that's crazy, it's stupid, doesn't make sense. But this is what is making this company highly successful today. And then you have frequent over-the-air updates. So when you're looking at sort of these a company like Tesla, you would have Apple that was bringing in products every 6 months. Tesla would kind of dramatically shift the game by bringing an over-the-air update as they constantly keep updating their battery technology and creating even more mileages and you can just think. So if you just look here, kind of summarizing it, they are in this zone. It's pretty clear. It's undeniable fact that they are in a new market zone. They're creating new markets, and essentially, and that's the new secrets they're creating. And I can tell you, they will be creating only a lot more secrets and unraveling and opening those secrets to their customers. So today, it definitely, this company is leading this game. So I hope this gives you a bit of a sort of just taking a sort of a step back and trying to understand. So we just went through companies that have built all kinds of systems today, are in an entangled mess of a lot of software platforms, a humongous amount of data, but no one knows how to sort of combine and unify the data. And then you have real sort of companies that are breaking through these barriers, creating software platforms and sort of reinventing the wheel, because they are actually creating a new market, which a lot of companies are just sitting and waiting. Unimaginable, but this is happening. In a couple of years' time, Tesla will be one of the largest. It is, by market valuation, the second largest. But I'm sure through numbers of their capital structure, cash flow, and also eventually the profitability, this company is going to be dramatically sort of shifting this game into a totally new ball game, having created that ecosystem with in the new market that they would have created. So if you look at this today, I mean, if you just kind of revisit the capability model, which you have seen so often, and I have highlighted these things here. It's important to kind of recognize the differences between the previous slide and this slide that I've created. It looks simplistic, yes, it does, I agree. But it is definitely a huge difference in which the real AI companies follow a rule of flexibility and being in a state of flux and being super dynamic, keeping data in the heart of their operations. So all these sort of dimensions which I have sort of played with the enterprises in the last decade or so are changing, because you need to totally make sure that each and every dimension of these 9 dimensions, for example, are operating on the principle of how do you create an outside in, inside out customer-centric culture? How do you enable and measure the partner's performance? If Tesla hadn't enabled and measured the performance of the partner like Mobileye, they would never be able to decide if they had to just kill the relationship and move on and start doing it on their own. It's super important to make and take those important bets in the future and the survivability of your company. You need a seamless flow of channels to make sure that you have full visibility into, if Tesla is giving all kinds of, over-the-air updates, they know definitely how their sort of channel. It's a living platform. It's not a static platform where you report quarterly sales. You already know what's going well and what's not going well. Executing like it's day one, it's a line I took from Amazon's CEO Jeff Bezos, but I think it makes a lot of sense for each and every company to live by this principle. You need to collect data on a constant basis and focus on improving, run and manage your applications, execute seamlessly across all channels, whether you want to set up a Tesla sales pop-up shop, you want to move it away into an online platform, and then again probably create a pop-up shop elsewhere. You need to be seamlessly executing across these online and offline channels, executing iteratively into your supply chain network, and stay in the AI dynamism mode. So this is the new world that I have been I've been fortunate enough to be able to work with a few executives. I must be honest with you that it doesn't really kind of resonate with a lot of companies but I think in the next 10 years, a lot of company would look back and probably, or probably the next 5 years already. So the recipe for a machine learning success at an interdepartmental level looks a little bit like this. I will not go too detailed into this. It's basically, you have companies still try to a lot of companies today are trying to do this. So let's not discount the fact that a lot of companies are doing this. But the problem is there's still a lot of disconnect, but still it's a recipe for success. If you have organized your business that focuses on data and focuses on platforms and focuses on your organizational business units, then you can tie these different units of consumer obsessed teams, data aware teams, your quantitative people focusing on data science and AI and machine learning and research department, and essentially having your other people from other disciplines like sourcing managers and project managers, UX, and all these other specialists kind of bringing in these. So going a little bit deeper into what it does actually mean to be the recipe of being a successful AI company, even at a machine learning departmental level, or if you say, well, if we have an AI department, you definitely need to make sure that you are succeeding on all dimensions. So for example, scientific machine learning is super important. These professionals are really focusing constantly figuring out solutions that probably may also lead to patentable intellectual property, and this is a very, very important department or sub-department you need to focus on. And then you have your operational machine learning departments. And think of companies like Uber or Netflix and all these other companies that constantly operationalize everything that they do in research and development. Everything that is happening here moves into operational, and they try to operationalize these algorithms and models. So they go from development and research and development to production, and involve skills like they focus on serving all these models into their production environments. And then finally, you have the third block is your core engineering. And if you don't have core engineering, then you're pretty much not doing that well. If you have already operationalized, how about taking those services and moving into your customer ecosystem? So this is a massive recipe for success inside your AI department. And I think there are ways. I won't go into details how to build these competencies and make them work seamlessly together. Culture is super important. I think I posted this yesterday. So just kind of focusing on, this is a command and control structure. I won't go into detail of all these. So you're just focusing on pushing responsibility down into your matrix organization. But essentially, as a leader, I think you should really look back and see if this is where is this a job for me to do, or I should let some capable people kind of taking up this job, because in an AI economy, I'm not going to succeed this way. So this is not a recipe for success at all. And I think what definitely is going to work is if CEOs, CXOs, and chief AI officers are really making a lot of effort to kind of come here and using smartphones to kind of get the work done, being super active on social media. I was talking to someone just a couple of days ago, and I said, listen, it's a huge strategy for Elon Musk to kind of work on social media and keep continuing to build his customer base. In the next couple of years, he'll have 100 million followers, out of which he's going to be definitely looking at a large consumer base. And I think that is something we should not forget, that we are actually entering a new world. It already is happening, and you need to make sure that you also are a leader that is capable of leading those people. And here you have, obviously, you need to give people a cause to embrace. If you don't have, then it doesn't work. That's how you kind of delegate responsibility and you make stars out of your people. And have to be super tech driven and extremely customer focused. As you saw, Tesla moved into developing their own platform because they knew themselves much better and didn't go to vendors and start buying large software platforms from other companies. And then let's go through this example very quickly. This is for marketing people. As you can see, this is pretty regular stuff. You can see here all these things. A lot of people in the marketing department have this capability map, and keep figuring out how to do things. And I think the goal should be here to kind of focus and start creating competitive machine learning driven apps or platforms that actually focus the needs of these specific domains or subdomains inside your marketing and communications department. If you zero in on one of these apps, let's say, you need to kind of define the purpose and goals, risks, responses, business benefits, related growth benefits, success metrics, technology you want to use, technological platform solutions, process, AI skills, and roles and titles, and the roles and tasks as well. And this is a quick example. I'll just go quickly through this. You can see this example in the link that I will provide to you guys. And so this is how it actually looks when it's filled up. So just gonna go back and forth here. This is how it looks when it's actually filled up. But eventually the work needs to be done when you bring all these capabilities together to be able to build something revolutionizing. So let's summarize this, and then I'll quickly go into our healthcare project, because I want to tell you at least something about it. And it really makes a lot of sense for you to show that we are not just giving you an example of what other companies are doing, but what we are trying to do. We're definitely super small and kiddie company. So this is basically how a company needs to succeed. Data is at the core of everything that you do. Making it sort of happen is definitely makes a lot of sense. Otherwise, this just becomes a nice, pretty picture on your PowerPoint. It doesn't really sort of resonate with the people who are working in these departments. And only then can you move into becoming a leader in your field. So I guess with this, let's go kind of quickly into our healthcare project. I want to go through a dental project very briefly. I see in the interest of time, I need to make sure that I will give a much detailed presentation in the next month or so, probably from Paris, from our office, a new office, together with our partners. But for now, so healthcare is super important. It's a huge field. It's a massive area, and a lot of people are focusing. And investors and VCs have already seen that this is the new sort of wave in 2020 to 2023. Big software sort of developments will happen to help make healthcare faster, cheaper, and effective. And just want to give you a small example of our own dental project. And just to give you a walkthrough, so basically, sort of dental problems are not so huge in many in the richer part of the world, and in the poorer part of the world, so you're just losing your teeth, and a lot of people die from various diseases and infections. So we went together with a partner and tried to kind of solve this problem. And just run this a little bit while I keep talking. So basically, we used a few thousand images, and as you can see me here, I'm sort of picking up a new image and actually going through an image and looking at the teeth and the lesion level. So you see here, you're looking at so this is your predictions, and here we have the ground truth. And you can see the lesions is here, under your tooth, as you can see your radiograph here, and you're playing around with the threshold. You see me playing around here. So basically, we used a few thousand images, and we had half of these had at least one apical lesion. And these images were kind of roughly, 3,500 distinct labeled lesions. And they were generated by the union of labels provided by 5 dentists. So this has been all labeled, annotated by dentists. So this is one of the largest sort of dental department that we're working with. And so they did the majority of work. So data pre-processing is super important in doing this. So in the next slide, as you can see here, so we used a few models. For example, we used the fast RCNN model. We had ResNet backbone for the lesions, identification, and then we had a UNet. I'm sure you're aware of the UNet as well. I won't go into details, but probably in the next technical session, I will go into the details. So we use that for semantic segmentation for pathological regions. And then we also use the mask RCNN. There's also a ResNet backbone for lesion instance segmentation. So basically, we use pretty conservative levels of data cleaning and augmentation. I will go into details of these in the next session, which we will organize for folks who are super excited about, how to really apply machine learning, right? So we used center cropping, we used all kinds of centered, limited adaptive histogram equalization, We used all kinds of sort of data expansion techniques like horizontal flipping, took the noisy labels as well, took small translations of the bounding boxes and segmentation. And just to kind of go into the next slide, we used the region of interest as well to locate the dentation from the surrounding anatomy. At the tooth level segmentation mask, we use the tooth level segmentation mask to help as regularization for subtasks for networks. So I know, if you were looking at the how to become an AI company slide, you were like, oh man, I didn't want to listen to the technology part. I mean, it's super boring. But I mean, it's important for you as a manager to really focus on why it is really important to kind of focus on these scientific sort of teams of researchers, of core engineering experts, and of people who actually are creating these new models. So here in this case is going back, so we use anchor teeth predictions for lesions to the root of the teeth. And just to kind of summarize, we use a DGX box as well with NVIDIA. We collaborated with NVIDIA here. So we use the small boxes for the gradient accumulation to maintain the stability of the gradients. And essentially, basically, what we did is we used the DGX boxes to optimize the hyperparameters by additional systems. So this is kind of, a really very quick walkthrough. It's a long sort of project we did, and we're moving forward to now to take this project into much higher sort of at talking to different dentistry departments to kind of expand and improve this project. But for now, I think we're super excited that this is actually leading us to actually do some really wonderful things in the world of healthcare. And I'm sure and definitely there are more projects coming, which I'm not allowed to talk because of our NDA, but a lot of stuff is coming as well. So I think, let's take a look at the project Kaylee. We are getting started. So I'm not going to talk about since it's still confidential, but I will give you a view of our researcher, and we are now onboarding 2 researchers. One we've already onboarded, who's worked on some really cool projects. So let's be very honest. The climate is changing. We're not putting the blame on humans. There's a lot of things that are happening, and I think there are better ways to look at how can we sort of adapt to this change and create a better, sort of a safer and more even efficient and profitable situation for companies, for individuals, for homeowners to be able to live and benefit from this, or at least take advantage of technology when applying into climate change. So this is a project. It's not our project. Let me be very clear. So this is a project our researchers right now working with us on several sort of earth sciences project. This is a project he did together with the company called Element AI, and here are the links. You will see the links, and you should be able to download and go further into understanding what it means. So basically, the goal was to do to construct a high-resolution image by the fusion of more frequent 300 million images. And it's called multi-image super resolution. Super resolution is another technique people have been using. There are many researches have been done, and that is really helping dramatically in the field of healthcare. But this is on satellite. So basically why they took this project, and they've actually won a second prize with the European Space Agency. I'm talking about our researcher Rifat, who was part of the team, which was called Arafin. And they won the second sort of prize for this project. So basically, they're finding destroyed villages in Darfur, spotting and predicting fires. This is something which we are going to be focusing on pretty soon, and a lot of other important efforts from a lot of non-governmental organizations. They just rely on this common tool today, which is military definitely has a lot of intel, but how do we kind of commoditize and create a commercial or at least something that government authorities and policymakers can use is satellite imagery. So if you look at this, you will see, there are applications in land management, for example, and you can see here, with their super resolution, you get to see, well, this is, high resolution image. And you can see the food security, for example, is one of the biggest challenges facing humanity, and you can do land and food security management from that. If you look at this, you have a mapping remote farms and road networks. And it reveals remote farm boundaries and roads, and maps often sort of missing networks, and spots actually inefficiencies in supply chain and in other areas, and try to also see how to bring those disadvantaged farmers and connecting them to their sort of the ecosystem, which helps them kind of plug into a much larger and profitable ecosystem. But you can also go into fields such as violation of human rights, or other sort of earth-related activity, fires, how people have been pushed out of the region, or other sort of large calamities, large groups of animals, endangered due to certain activity. It could be volcanic ash, it could be flooding, it could be fires. So there are many, many problems. Oh, my apologies for this. This is not this is not the correct title. I was sort of in a rush to kind of create this for you guys. So basically, this is a new project. We're extremely fascinated about on taking on this project. So I think I'll take a break here now. I'm going to stop. I'm going to try to sort of put myself on the camera. Let's see if I can do that. I'll turn on the lights and try to close this conversation. I know I guess I mentioned a lot of things, and sort of this gives you a bit of an idea on. Let me just take out my phone, and I'm gonna. I hope you guys can still see me. Let me just kind of, so put it on a selfie. So I hope you guys can still see me. There was I got some warning on broadcast problems. I'll just turn on the lights here, and let's see. In any case, I think I hope you guys are still able to see this. I have no idea what happened with the broadcast error, but I think the important message, you can also see the little bit of the office of our colleagues which are working on. So I think the message that I want to give here is, becoming an AI company is a challenge. It's not easy. It takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of effort to change and to adapt to a new, dramatically changing environment. And I think I would suggest that, with this, try to adapt and adopt new models, adapt to the new environment, adopt new models, create new models that really help and redefine the realities of your company. And hopefully that'll help you sort of move into the new world. And that'll help you advance faster with these technologies. It's not easy. A lot of things are happening at a rapid pace. We've been pulled into healthcare. I haven't spoken about our petrophysics project. Climate is a huge thing we're moving into social and policy projects as well. So there's a lot of benefit of AI becoming a successful technology that people can use. But it's not just going to happen on its own. And I think to make it happen on its own, we need to make sure that we take the right steps, we take the steps, we are able to take some risks as well, and that is the only way to become an AI company. So with this, I want to close this an hour session. I know it's probably has been too much to absorb, I can imagine, but fortunately, when you go back into this recording and are able to look at it, we'll give you some insights. I hope some great ideas. I'm here at your disposal to answer all your questions, and I hope it went well. Thank you so much, and I love you guys a lot.